Hey, I'm Kevin with Creative Digital Media, and in this video I'm going to walk you through setting up AMP pages or accelerated mobile pages on your WordPress website. This is the homepage for the plugin I'm going to show you how to install. It is AMP for WP. So AMP or accelerated mobile pages are essentially just stripped down versions of your website that load much faster than your regular website. They are cached pages that basically don't have any CSS or custom styling. They're very stripped down and they load really quickly on mobile, which provides a better user experience, and that goes a long way towards improving your site's search engine optimization or SEO. So this is an important aspect or an important plugin to add to improve your site's SEO friendliness. So just to show you the difference in AMP, I have right here, this is my website with AMP enabled. This is my regular blog. I just squeezed the window down because the website's responsive. So it looks good on mobile even without AMP, as you can see in the example on the left. But on the right, it doesn't look that different. I mean, obviously there's, like, you can see these individual blog posts have like a hover effect, and there's a box shadow, like a subtle box shadow behind each of the posts. Whereas the AMP version, other than when I hover over a link, there's no like custom styling or anything. Everything is just like all the custom styling is taken out. As you can see, like the header is pretty much the same. I actually like the AMP header more because it has this click to call button, which I could add to my header, but just easier to do AMP. And the menu, like there's a slide up menu and you can choose which side you want it to come out from, and you can set the background color. You can choose to have or to disable the search function, and you can add links to your social media profiles as well, which is pretty cool. So those are the differences visually between AMP and non-AMP. So now I will show you how to install it on WordPress. And just really quickly, this is the homepage for AMP for WP, but there's also a good amount of tutorials and like how-to guides on their site under help. So if you hover over help, they have tutorials and you can contact them. I don't know how responsive they are. It's a pretty well developed plugin, so I assume they're pretty good about getting back to you. But there's plenty of very detailed, like this is the post for basically like setting AMP up on your website, and it's pretty damn long. But it goes through like every single option step by step. Once logged into WordPress, within your WordPress dashboard, if you hover over plugins, I'm sure if you're adding AMP, you already know how to install a plugin on WordPress, but if you don't, this is how you do it. I've already searched for AMP, but you can just type it in and it'll do some searching. There is another AMP plugin that actually has more installations, but doesn't give any like customization options really. It's this one right here. And if you're using Yoast on WordPress, which most people are, you also have to use Glue for Yoast and AMP down here in conjunction with this plugin. So I like this one. It's got better ratings and way more reviews, and it has a ton of options for customizing it. It's even compatible with page builders. Like if you're using Divi or Elementor, it does not, I repeat, it does not work with Thrive themes. And I know this because I was using Thrive themes on my website, which is a great theme, but when I went to add AMP for WP and I went through the whole process of installing it, I then went to look at my website and it completely like fell to shit. Like every bulleted list on my blog, if I had a bullet, each bullet would somehow get blown up and become like a full screen image. It was weird. So I got frustrated and just got rid of Thrive themes and switched over to StudioPress, the Genesis framework from them, and I'm using the Business Pro theme, which I really like. It keeps everything consistent across my whole site, and it's just like a very clean, professional design. And they have more options depending on what type of business you need or what you need your website for. Like they have blogging themes, like more corporate style themes for lawyers, themes for news sites, e-commerce sites. I think they have like 60 different themes. They are premium themes, so you do have to pay for them. You pay for the Genesis framework and then whichever theme you want on top of that. It's like $120 depending on the theme. To install this plugin, all you have to do is I just clicked install and then activate. All right, so AMP is installed. There is an option to go through an installation wizard. I don't think it's not necessary. I don't think it's really even worth it because you can just go through all the settings. I'm going to show you all the settings in this video. So just by watching this video, you'll have AMP properly implemented on your website. And the setup wizard only, or installation wizard, it's only like 5 steps. You add your logo, you add a Google Analytics tracking code, you choose which pages on your website you want to be AMP pages, and that's pretty much it. So I'll take you through all the settings right now. If you need help or are looking for like not a physical guide, but a step-by-step written guide, down here they have links to different basically those pages I showed you earlier, like the tutorials right here. So over on the left, click on settings. All right, so once that's done, go to the settings page. This is where it'll bring you after the installation wizard if you do that, I think. Down here there is different add-ons that you can purchase. It's for like adding email opt-in forms. If you have a e-commerce store, your e-commerce website, they have AMP for WooCommerce. Star ratings, so it's basically like for schema markup or structured data. You should have schema on your website. So this enables you to basically like display your aggregate star rating in the search results. And it may also allow you to display it on your website. I'm using just the free version of AMP for WP, and it's a fantastic plugin. It covers everything you could possibly want. But if you want more, there is options for it. So we'll just go down this list. I'll try and go quickly, and there's some things I'm going to skip over or ignore because I don't think they're relevant or they're not that important. So I'll just stick to what's most important or relevant. If you do need an in-depth guide into every single feature, the configuring AMP options goes through literally everything step by step. So to start off, go to General. And this is pulling the logo in from my website normally. You can resize the logo. If you click on this, you can change basically like to display your logo at a certain percentage of its original size. So the recommended size for AMP is 190 by 36. But depending on what kind of logo you have, like you may have a logo that's wider or is more square. So you can basically set it to display at different sizes by clicking on this. But it will resize automatically, so it will scale. So just make sure if you aren't using a PNG file for your logo, make sure you do that with like a transparent background so it scales without becoming distorted like a JPEG picture would. So these are the settings for enabling or disabling AMP on certain pages on your website. On my website, I have it enabled for posts and pages because I have a static homepage. If you do not have a static homepage and basically your archive page for your blog or your blog feed is your homepage, then you can choose homepage support. So this basically turns your homepage into your blog page. So it'll just have a list of all of your blog posts. You can choose to have a custom homepage and then basically just select the homepage from all of your pages from this dropdown. I don't have that enabled on my website, so I don't know basically like what this strips away from your homepage design. I know my homepage is responsive, so I'm not including my homepage. I only use AMP on my posts and pages. And you can choose to have the page title be displayed on your homepage. Turning that off and it automatically closes the others, and you can turn it AMP on for your archives and category pages or categories and tags. And you can set AMP for custom post types, which is like you can see portfolio items. And the convert AMP to WP, basically it converts it takes your AMP pages and non-AMP pages and like makes a uniform design from the two of them and then only serves one page to visitors. So you basically like only have an AMP version of your website, but it's basically like, I believe it resembles your original theme. Alternatively, there is AMP Takeover, which basically doesn't get rid of, but it will only serve AMP pages. So it basically just AMP takes over your website. So I have that off because I want the desktop version of my website to look like the desktop version of my website. So moving on is page builders. As you can see, they support several page builders. I'm not using a page builder right now, but there is documentation on how to implement AMP in conjunction with your page builder. It also allow you to display ads, and there is an upgraded version that I'm not sure. I'm not using ads or displaying ads on my site, so I have not done this, but again, there is documentation on implementing the advertisements. So SEO, the meta description is, I believe this basically just pulls the meta description from each page. So the way AMP works is if I'm on my phone and I Google SEO services Phoenix, the search results will display a little like lightning bolt. They'll display this kind of logo next to my website's snippet in the results. And I believe this just pulls your meta description from your post or page and uses that as the meta description for AMP. And you can integrate with several different SEO plugins depending on what you're using. I'm using Yoast. I could also use Genesis, but I'm using Yoast. So this is just asking if I wanted to pull the meta tags, the Yoast description in the LD plus JSON, turn that on, and then canonical from Yoast. So this basically, it's a good point to explain canonical URLs. A canonical URL basically like helps you prevent duplicate content on your website, which with AMP could be an issue because the way that AMP works with your website is basically makes a copy of every page. As you can see on my blog page, it's creativedigitalmedia.com/blog/AMP. That's the AMP version of my blog page. Whereas this is the regular version, so there is not an AMP at the end of the URL. So a canonical URL is basically saying that this is the original version of this page. This is the page that you should index as the original version of the content. Because you have a AMP and non-AMP URL, both pages are identical except for a few like styling options that you don't see in AMP. So the canonical from Yoast, basically Yoast automatically adds a canonical URL to each page, and when you set the canonical from Yoast to on, it basically identifies your desktop version or identifies the original version of that piece of content so that you're not getting or you don't have any duplicate content issues on your website. URL inspection compatibility tool basically allows you to no index certain pages on your site. So you can basically tell Google to index or not index all these different pages. So if you have this set to on, it will automatically, like all of these will be set to index. So I just leave that on. It's up to you what you do. And I should have mentioned this earlier, but every time you make changes, make sure you're hitting save changes at the bottom. So performance enhancement, Minify, this just basically like gets rid of like if there's lines between like empty lines in your code, like it gets rid of like empty lines and just basically like compresses everything, or gets like it'll combine your different code into like one file instead of having to serve like multiple files for different areas. So it just speeds your site up a little bit. So just leave that or set that to on. And analytics, you can set up Google Analytics. You just need your tracking code, or you can use, if you're using Google Tag Manager, you can set up a container in Google Tag Manager. So structured data or schema markup, you can set it for your posts and pages. So a post or a blog post should be set to blog posting. Or if it's an article of some sort, then you can set it to a news article. If you have like a food blog, you can set it to a recipe. And this just basically enables the search engines to display certain information in the search results. If your blog is or you have a blog post that's a recipe, or your blog is like a recipe blog, you can set your posts to have recipe schema, and that enables like Yahoo, Bing, Google, DuckDuckGo, different search engines to display that recipe as a featured snippet in the search results, which featured snippets appear above everything else in the search results and are a great way to increase click-throughs to your website. And it's like prime real estate on the search engine's results page. For the pages, I have this set to web page, but if you have like an e-commerce, you can set it to a product. So you can set a default structured data logo. I would use the same logo that you use for the schema or structured data that you have on the desktop version of your website. And just like in the header, you can customize the size of your logo. Default post image is when there is not a featured image set for a post. It will default to using whatever image you set here. If you're in Europe, you can turn on notifications. This is a cookie consent bar. So this is like when you go to a website and you see a bar pop up at the bottom or sometimes at the top. It says like basically like do you like permit us to basically like asking people if you can track their usage of your website. And the Gdpr compliance, this is the one that's for like Europe. Push notifications, this is you have to use I think one signal. And push notifications are like when you go to somebody's site and up here on the upper left it like something pops down and it says like allow so-and-so to send you notifications or something like that. Contact form, the AMP for WP supports Contact Form 7, Gravity Forms, and Ninja Forms. It does not support Happy Forms. That said, I'm using Happy Forms and I was about to switch when I remembered one great setting that this plugin has. The only page on my site that I'm not using AMP is my homepage and my Contact Us page. And it is enabled in the settings on my Contact Us page, but on every page you have these options in the document settings on the right-hand side of the WordPress editor, and that shows up in your posts and pages. But for this Contact Us page, because the contact form doesn't display on AMP, so I basically just turned AMP off for my contact page over here. You just choose to hide it and disable the mobile redirection to Contact Us, and it just displays the regular version of my webpage as opposed to the AMP version of my webpage. So there is no AMP version of my contact page. But if you're using one of these, then it does support it, so it will display it. You can choose to allow comments on posts or pages. I don't need people commenting on my pages, but blog posts, sure, I would love comments. Go to my blog and comment right now. And you can change your comments to like use Facebook comments, or if you're using Discuss or Vucal or Vucal or Vucal, I don't know, or spot.im. So I only want it on my posts, and these are hiding the bulk tools. So those, basically you can turn AMP off for entire categories on your site. So like the hide AMP bulk tools, what this is basically means is, see how this is like hide AMP? This is what it's referring to. So it's a way to hide a group of pages or posts instead of doing it individually on every page or post. You can do it to entire categories. So to select categories, you have to enter basically like whatever your categories are. So if I wanted to exclude all my posts about SEO, I can exclude all of the SEO posts. I'm not going to do that, but that's how you would do it. And you can turn that feature off, meaning that like if I don't want this to show up in my editor in the back end right here, I can turn it off right here and just say hide by default. Onto the advanced settings, and some of these are pretty cool. All right, so mobile redirection. Turn that on, and I have that on for both mobile and tablets. And this is a pretty cool feature, the changing internal links to AMP. Basically, what this does is, right here I am on a desktop version of my website. So this is a internal link to my About Us page. As you can see on the bottom left, where it previews the URL, it's creativedigitalmedia.com/about us. And this one, creativedigitalmedia.com/benefits of local SEO. So those are links to other internal pages on my website, and they're desktop versions of those pages or posts. Whereas on the AMP version, that same SEO expert link is automatically changed to an AMP version of that page. Because if somebody's viewing AMP, if they're on their phone, they've automatically been redirected to the AMP version of this web page. So if they go to another page that is following a non-AMP link, it automatically redirects them to an AMP page because they're on their phones. So it takes a little bit longer to load if it has to redirect. But if the link is just a direct link, then there is no redirect. So it automatically changes the links to AMP links on AMP pages. It doesn't do it on non-AMP pages, as you can see here. E-commerce, I don't have e-commerce, but it does support WooCommerce. And if you're going to be like giving away like ebook downloads or anything like that, or even if you're selling products that are downloadable, this is where you would enable that. Did not hit save changes. Translation panel. This is basically like the Breadcrumbs homepage title. So like changing this would change what your homepage is called on your Breadcrumbs. These are the breadcrumbs right here. So this is homepage. You can change that to whatever you want, but I think homepage makes sense because it is the homepage. You can choose from a few different themes with AMP. I'm using the Swift theme, but there is other options. This is design 1, obviously, design 2. I'm not quite sure what the like sequence of events that led to the naming of these, but I don't know. Design 4 makes more sense, but that's just me. So maybe they got a new person that named their themes. They also have, basically depending on what your website's about, like if I have a digital marketing agency, so if I was going to purchase a theme, this is one that I would look at. but I'm not, because I think this theme right here actually isn't that bad. One thing I do want to point out is in header, you can add an alternate header or alternate menu. This right here is the alternate menu that is referring to. So you can click the hamburger icon and have the slide in menu, and you can have your pages listed right here, and this does swipe horizontally. So you are able to scroll over and see basically like whatever pages you want to have on here. I have that turned off, but like if you have an e-commerce store and want to set up basically like different categories, then you could set it right here, or different products, or you could set it to whatever. Basically like just means that somebody does not have to click the hamburger to navigate to a different page. Under global, you can change the color of basically like this is the links within your content, and this is the link color when you hover over a link, which doesn't make sense to me because on mobile you can't hover over something because there isn't a mouse pointer, but I digress. You can choose whether or not you want to have a sidebar. I have this turned off. And infinite scroll, this is basically like, instead of having like pagination on your blog posts, like if you go into your blog archive and say you have 200 blog posts, instead of like only 10 displaying on a page and then you have to hit like the next button to go over, or however many you have displaying on your archive page, the infinite scroll basically sets it so that it will display 3 pages worth of posts all on one page instead of only like 10 at a time. So it won't display 200 of them, but it will display 30 of them if you have it set to 10 by default. And you can change the icons that you're using, or that will be displayed. I use Font Awesome in Gutenberg in the WordPress editor, so you can also add custom CSS if you know how to do CSS. You can make customizations to your theme, the look and feel of your theme right there. If you want to be able to change the font on your AMP pages, you need to get a Google Font API key. I didn't do this. The font that they provide that just is used by default is fine. I think it's set by Genesis anyways, or it just uses whatever Genesis is using. So the header, you can choose from 3 different headers. You only get one option as far as the menu. And for header, it's up to you. Like, I do like this middle one with the call to action button on the right, but on my site I use this one because it's the only one with the hamburger on the right, and most people are right-handed and hold their phones in their right hand. So in order to navigate the site with one hand, it's easier if the hamburger is on the right-hand side. You can have the menu, a search icon turned on or off, which you would do right here, which is this. You can turn that on or off, and then the menu copyright, when the menu comes out, all rights reserved, so there's a copyright notice. The alternative menu is what I just showed you. It would basically be a bar that pops up down here that has a sticky menu that just stays with your header. You put like your services pages or whatever you want there. You can have a call now button. Just enter your phone number and then it will automatically basically call you when somebody clicks on it. The non-AMP link in the header is basically, I don't have this on this site. Yeah, I don't. But basically it provides an option for if somebody wants to see the page in a non-AMP version, the non-AMP link will enable that. And then you can turn on or toggle sticky header on or off. And there is some advanced header design. This is optional. You can change the width, height, different margin. You can play with the margin and padding if you want. I have it off. And you can change the background color of your header. By default, it is white, but you can change it to whatever you want. And then when you do try and set a color, make sure after choosing a color, you hit choose or click on choose. Otherwise, you'll just keep going back and forth it won't select the color if you don't hit choose. So you can change the background color of the menu. As you can see, it's by default it's like black with maybe like 90% transparency. So I just have it set to a solid color, but you can set it to whatever you want. I have it set to the same color as my header. And then the header elements is basically like the click to call number like this, or your hamburger or the search icon. So if you have a dark menu background, you want to make your header elements a light color. I have them set to white, and the menu color, I believe this is the text in your menu. Again, I set that to white, and you can choose which side of the screen you want your menu to pop out from and how much of the screen you want it to take up when it pops out. And make sure you save changes. This is what it means with that bottom percentage, there's still 10% of the screen available. Very important note about headers and menus. Your AMP header does not have a menu assigned to it. So it will, like how this shows all the pages and stuff, that's not going to be there. So you need to go to Appearance and then Menus, and whatever you're using as your main menu, a new option will show up at the bottom of it, and you can assign it to your AMP header. Otherwise, you'll have nothing showing up in here, and it'll be really frustrating, because it was for me, because I didn't figure it out at first, and no tutorials tell you to do that. So just Menus, and then Appearance, Appearance and then Menus. And this is my main menu, and as you can see, like right here, it's already set to AMP menu. And you can set it as a footer menu as well. My header is sticky, so I don't see any reason to also have it in the footer. But just choose AMP, or you can create another menu and display that. And then just hit save. All right, once you have the menu set up, back over to the AMP settings, you can choose how you want individual posts to be displayed. So I have the sidebar turned off, but I use the right option, because if you use this option, it makes the featured image like massive, and I just didn't think it looked too great. And you can choose for your breadcrumbs, which you should be using breadcrumbs. It's important for SEO, and it makes your site a little more user-friendly. I have it set to category. You can set it to tags, but set it to category. And you can have it pull the breadcrumbs from Yoast. And these are basically like what single elements do you want displayed as like metadata on your post. So I don't mind the categories, but I wouldn't want tags. And then this is basically like, do you want the individual categories and tags to be links to that particular category or tag page? And the sticky social icons, I have this set to on, and this is essentially these social icons down at the bottom. They just stay there, so those are sticky. And the next previous is basically like at the very bottom of your post, the reader can hit like next post, and it'll bring them to whatever the next post in your archive is. And then you can choose to display the author name, the bio. Post pagination, I have this set to next previous. And you can choose to display or to not display related posts, and what different aspects you want, or different like features you want displayed in the related posts section. So you can display like an excerpt from your content, a link to the non-AMP version if you want, You can randomly sort related posts and choose how many related posts you want to be displayed. And you can do in content related posts. And I think this basically just inserts, you can basically like halfway through your content or after a certain number of paragraphs, you can have it display a number of related posts. I have that off because if somebody's reading one of my blog posts, I don't want them, even though they'd still be on my website, I wouldn't want them leaving to go to a different blog post. And galleries, so if you have an image gallery, you can display it as a carousel, which will just make an arrow appear on the sides to scroll left or right or paginate. And you can use a carousel with a thumbnail, so it'll have like a big image, and then at the bottom it'll have small thumbnail images of each picture in that gallery, so they can like jump from like the first picture to the fifth picture instead of having to keep hitting the button to go next. Or you can display your images as a grid and then have them pop up in a light box, which is basically like when you press the picture, it pops up in a larger size, like basically hovering over the content. You can assign a custom, well, not really custom, but you can set up a footer and then add widgets to it. So you need to do that in the appearance and then widgets by just dragging them into the AMP footer and then customizing them accordingly. You can choose to display a menu in the footer, which is this right here, and then a link to non-AMP pages, which is view non-AMP version, you can see right here. And then a back to top link is, I showed you that earlier, it's that little icon that just like floats at the bottom right of your screen. And you can further customize your footer, basically like change the colors the same way you did the header. And individual pages, depending on like what kind of theme you're using, you can play with these settings. The social media, so social sharing buttons, those are the buttons that I showed you that are sticky at the bottom of the post. So if someone's reading my posts and wants to share it on Facebook, all they have to do is click that button and it will bring them to the, like, it'll automatically redirect to the Facebook, like, allow to share feature or whatever. It'll enable you to easily share posts on Facebook with a few taps of your thumb. And there's plenty of social sites. And for the links in the header menu, you can add the URL to your individual social profiles, and then they will show up in your menu like I showed you earlier. And you can choose how you want the date to be displayed in your like blog archive or on the blog posts individually. It'll say like published on, but you can change how that is displayed, like show how many days ago it was published or just show the traditional view. You can choose to show subcategories. As I mentioned at the beginning, there is plenty of add-ons like page builder compatibility. It's going to cost you $90, which is pretty insane. There's plenty of extensions that you can add. That's it for adding accelerated mobile pages to your website. Sorry if this went a little longer than I had anticipated, but it's just so fascinating. I couldn't help it. And I wanted to make a video that covered everything. So if you're trying to do this and are getting frustrated or lost and confused and annoyed, now you have a step-by-step guide for setting up accelerated mobile pages on your website. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to try and do a video a day for 90 days. It's a content challenge. We'll see how I do. But again, thanks for watching and have a great day.